Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's nice to have you along. I'm scrambling this morning, so if I seem a little disjointed, forgive me.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense, no prescription required.
Americans love a winner.
Just trying to compose my thoughts a little bit.
I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is the
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Wednesday, April 30th today. So the president hit the first 100 days of his second term, and he celebrated this in Michigan last night. And he said, we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, he said. And that's according to many, many people. This is the best. We are just getting started. You haven't seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in. And he talked about saving the American dream. He said, we're making America great again. And it's happening fast, too. What the world has witnessed in the past 14 weeks is a revolution of common sense. And there's a lot. As I have watched, that's certainly the way that I have felt, that it's been a revolution of common sense. And he said, what the world has witnessed in the past 14 weeks is just a revolution of common sense. That's all it is, really. We're conservative, you're liberal, whatever the hell he said. You know what it's all about? It's all about common sense. And it's all about the number of people who lack that common sense, I think. But the president said, when you think about it, we're for common sense. We like strong borders. We like good education. We like low interest rates. We like being able to buy a beautiful car and now deduct the interest on the loan. That's never happened before. We want a strong military. We want low taxes, he said. So he was, in addition to this, he had visited Belfrage Air Force Base, and the future of the base, future was in doubt following the phase out of certain planes. And he said in 100 days, we have delivered the most profound change in Washington in nearly 100 years. I read an editorial today that this is the most consequential presidency in history. How about that? And it wasn't even by a group that would normally be supporting us. It was a group of people that I think they tend to be on the liberal side, but they said it's the most important election, November 5th, that changed it all. And he said, you have to see when you hear some of these numbers, but that is the most consequential election that we've ever had in our country. What a nice thing. I'm going to start subscribing to that particular paper, even though I don't read it much. I'm going to subscribe. But it was a very nice compliment, especially from them. Interesting. I wonder who that was. So the prior to the big event, you had Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, who greeted the president on the tarmac. Before his speech, then, he spoke to National Guard members yesterday. And Whitmer said, well, I hadn't planned to speak, but on behalf of all the military men and women who serve our country and serve so honorably on behalf of the state of Michigan, I'm really damn happy we're here, she said. So the president in Michigan yesterday. Meanwhile, and of course, the president there to celebrate his first 100 days in office. So what are the Democrats doing? Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer didn't show a lot of love for the president. He kicked off what he had advertised as an all-nighter on the Senate floor, by Democrats planning to rail against President Donald Trump for actions over the last over his first 100 days. Schumer is saying that it's been 100 days of corruption and cronyism that will be forcing much higher costs on the American people. It really is awful. This is a threat to our democratic republic. He's acting like a king, a mob boss, a wannabe dictator. He said he wanted to be a dictator on day one. Yeah, he did. Which I think was a mistake, and what you have to take a look at that comment. Remember what he said is, "I'm going to be a dictator on day one." In other words, we're going to close the border. We're going to do these things. In other words, he was going to fulfill his campaign promises. He would do that on day one, and then he said after that. So the Democrats have. I thought that was one of those. That was an unforced error by the president. So the Democrats are still harping on this. He said he wanted to be a dictator on day one. Looks like he's extending it. Any quarter of opposition that might just say something in our tradition of, I can't help but laugh. I got to tell you honestly, I listened to this guy and I just burst out laughing. He has no credibility. And anymore, have you seen him? Is he standing up at the podium? He's up there and his head's way down and his glasses are way down. He's looking over the top of his glasses. And I'm like, man, that is just like, you know what I hear coming out of his mouth? You can't get off my lawn. I mean, that's what I see every time. I just look up and I'm like, man, oh man. But he said of the president, any quarter of opposition that might just say something in our tradition of free speech and debate, he tries to crush the law firms, crush the universities, go after the judges, which have been the foundation of our republic. That judges are independent and are able to stop an executive that's going too far. It's just nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And as if he is not engaged in enough nonsense, enter Senator Richard Blumenthal and others, and it's just crazy. So Schumer yesterday had been challenged by CNN on his own sinking poll numbers within the party. Said polls come and go. Our party is united. Yeah. I don't want to tell you what I think they're united in, but I'm not sure we know. So a lot of stories this morning about the president's first 100 days. The rally in Michigan, he said, we've accomplished more in 3 months than most administrations accomplish in 4 years or even 8 years. He said, believe me, we're just getting started. So he talked about, the things he's been doing over the course of the last 100 days. The crackdown on illegal immigration, his economic policies. He said America, under him, he said America is a dumping ground for criminals no longer. They're not even trying to come in. Did you hear that? You may have heard the quote from the president where he said that illegal immigration is down 99.99% during his administration. The number of people who are trying to come in illegally. Isn't it amazing what happens when you actually enforce a law? And we were told, oh, you can't do these things. Oh, you enforce a law, man, boom. Just amazing. See, and I think then what I'm interested to see is, okay, what will the administration's actions on the border translate to over the next 100 days? So, in other words, what other things will we see, positive things, as a result of the administration's crackdown on the border? What positive effect will we see in the upcoming 100 days? I think we're going to wind up talking about it. I think it's going to be profound. Also, I was trying to see if there was anything additionally the president had commented on. So that's a very big story. The revolution of common sense, the president says, and I like this. I mean, the way that he has embraced the term common sense, it's what we talk about here all of the time. And this is what I think a lot of Americans are hungry for. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, independent, where you stand on the political scale. I think a lot of us just want common sense. And so many folks, just the way that he carries himself and the way he conducts himself is the reason why I laugh at Democrats are out there. Oh, he's a king, and this guy is out there taking more questions from the media than we've ever seen before, engaged in conversations with them. You got the White House, actually, Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary at the White House, who's actually answering questions and getting back to people. And unlike the train wreck of the previous 4 years, it's just absolutely incredible. So also this morning, the president sitting down with ABC's Terry Moran over his tariff policies, deportations, a number of things. And then let's go to the New York Post here first. The president, Moran this was Terry Moran, who's an anchor at ABC News. And the president saying, never heard of him. Didn't know who he was. Even I've heard of him. So Moran pressed Trump on the 145% levies he's imposed on China, saying the tariff is bound to raise prices on everything. The president disagreed with that. He said, you don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to eat it. And Moran said, that's mathematics. And the president said, China will probably eat those tariffs. But he said, but at 145%, they basically can't do much business with the United States. And they were making from us $1 trillion a year. They were ripping us off like nobody's ever ripped us. Nobody's ever ripped us off. Everything's going to be just fine. It wouldn't have been if I didn't do this. So they talked about immigration and did you hear? And then Moran, they wound up talking about Garcia, the MS-13 gang member, and about having MS-13, tattooed on his knuckles. And they got into an argument over that, and Trump's like, Moran says, well, those photos could have been doctored. It could have been doctored. So he's accusing the president of the United States then of holding up doctored photos of his knuckles, showing MS-13 across his knuckles. And it was just crazy. Also, the president was upset at his stupid question from Moran about his confidence in Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. And it was kind of a bit of a heated conversation, and Trump promised everything's going to be just fine, he said. The I was trying to see if there was anything more about this. They talked about inflation. We'll get into this in more detail coming up this morning. But that issue about Abrego Garcia, the president said this is an MS-13 gang member, a tough cookie, been in a lot of skirmishes, beat the hell out of his wife, okay? This is not an innocent, wonderful gentleman from Maryland. And Moran said, well, I'm not saying Garcia is a good guy. It's about the rule of law, Moran said. He says the president could get Abrego Garcia back. He said, there's a phone on this desk. You could pick it up and call the president of El Salvador and say, send it back now. Trump said, well, he would do that if he were the gentleman that you say he is. So they had quite a heated back and forth, and this has been picked up. So that's a big story this morning. I would have thought this would be a big story. It is. There's been a lot of talk about Bill Belichick and his 24-year-old girlfriend. Belichick is 73 years old. His girlfriend is 24 years old. Incredible age difference between the two of them. So now there was an interview that Belichick had done Sunday, and she got right in the middle of it. This is a conversation on CBS Sunday Morning with Jordan Hudson. And Hudson had trying to ask about their relationship and how the two of them met. And she said, we're not going to talk about it. She says, now again, it's Belichick's interview. She says, we're not going to talk about that. And it's like, wow. So now there's all kinds of reaction to this. And New York Post has a story this morning. This is in celebrity news, that marriage might be in their future. A photo obtained by Page 6, this is part of the New York Post, shows the 24-year-old flaunting a ring on, that finger, the one where you wear a wedding band or an engagement ring. So she had a ring on that finger while at the American Museum of Natural History luncheon in New York City yesterday. So there are questions as to whether I really just would prefer to stay out of that. That story has been all over. And a lot of people admittedly are talking about it, the age difference. And that to me is interesting. I just leave it to people to make up their own. They got to make their own choices. So, there is an age difference between my wife and I, but it's 22 years. It's not as big an age difference. And I think, Clay and Buck talked about this on their show the other day, and it turned out that was fairly common. There were a number of people who were calling where they had an age difference in their marriage between 20 and 30 years, in that kind of, but what Bill Belichick has got is wow. But again, I'd rather mind my own business, but that story has just been all over the place. There was also a story this morning about a new mom kicked out of a running club, and it's over. She had She was in the Boston Marathon, and she got kicked out of this running club because she doesn't believe the transgenders should be competing and that they're stealing spots from women. So she wound up getting kicked out of it as a result of that. I think there's some conversation there. Also, there's a story, this also an exclusive from the New York Post, that Elon Musk is no longer working from the White House. And we kind of knew this was going to be happening. So the meetings between the president and Elon Musk now occurring on the phone rather than in person. Also, New York Post has a lot of significant news. It's just it's probably it's without question one of my primary sources, if not the primary source of what we do on this show. Kristi Noem's purse, as you know, was recently stolen. And this guy who stole it was within arm's reach of Secret Service. And I think there are questions there about Secret Service protection. And what are these folks doing? And why are we seeing these kinds of things happen? Whether it's the assassination attempts on Donald Trump, the theft of, Kristi Noem's bag. Do you have questions about that? I think you might, because I have been asking myself that question. And that's a look at the big stories this morning. Thanks for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. Currently partly cloudy, 46. This hour brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Weeknights 5 to 8. Kello News Talk 1320.
Man, I talk too much.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
See why Window World of Sioux Falls doors and windows are right for you. Not only do they raise home value and curb appeal, they cut costs with energy-efficient construction made in the USA with a best-in-class warranty. Upgrade your home now. Call 605-373-1100.
At BMW Motorcycles of Sioux Falls, the BMW F900 GS and the all-new R1300 GS have suspense. It's built for curiosity, for grit, for adventure. This is the spirit of BMW GS. Make life a ride at Burn ID Powerhouse.
Sioux Falls. Say hello to Blue Peak Business Fiber Internet. With lightning fast fiber speeds up to 10 gig, we're here to elevate your connectivity so you can protect sensitive data, process transactions faster, and support your customer service.
How you doing this morning, gang?
Plus, our fiber internet packages come with Eero for Business for easy guest Wi-Fi setup. Visit mybluepeak.com/business. Call 855-620-5951 or reach out to your local representative today. Terms and conditions apply.
Disaster strikes.
Hey, good luck, Robert. I hope things go well today.
Storms tearing down power lines, wildfires scorching the grid, and severe storms leaving thousands in the dark. That's why smart families are turning to the Grid Doctor 3300 from MyPatriotSupply.com. It's the only solar generator on the market with built-in EMP.
I'm not sure common sense is all that common anymore either.
And powerful enough to run refrigerators,
I love your comments, guys.
Grid fails, but it's not just for emergencies.
No, it's not common.
3300 from My Patriot Supply to slash your power bill, keep your spring adventures fully charged, or light up your next backyard.
It seems
without relying
more
on the grid.
exceptional than it ever has before, doesn't it? Common sense.
Anytime, anywhere. Protect your home. Power your life. Be ready for whatever 2025.
Okay.
The Grid Doctor 3300 now, only at MyPatriotSupply.com. That's MyPatriotSupply.com. America's leader in emergency preparedness.
6:30. Beautiful morning. Partly cloudy, 46. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
Fox News, I'm Gian Gelosi. President Trump marked his 100th day of his second term with a rally in Michigan where he touted his perceived accomplishments like securing the border, cutting spending, and
I ended all of the lawless so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion.
he also defended his tariff
Having
plan
to
that's
bleep
been
up.
largely unpopular in recent polling.
They're coming from all over the world to see you, President. They want to make
Excuse
a
me.
deal. They want to make a deal.
Senate Democrats held their own event highlighting 100 days of chaos. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
He's acting like a king, a mob boss, a wannabe dictator.
Today, on day 101, the president builds on yesterday's momentum by rallying his cabinet in Washington.
You know what's amazing to me?
And meeting
I have
with CEOs and
absolutely
business
no
leaders
idea
later
how
today.
laughable
Americans listening to Fox News.
they sound, Democrats. And they have no self-awareness whatsoever.
Weather brought to you by Infinity Sedation Dentistry, Sioux Falls.
Just
They fix
amazing.
your teeth while you sleep.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. President Trump's recent comments surrounding Indigenous Peoples Day very much differ from South Dakota's history. Trump posted on Truth Social that he would be bringing Columbus Day back. He noted that although it never left and is still a federal holiday, recognizing Columbus has taken a back seat to acknowledging Native American history. South Dakota became the first state to recognize Native American Day as an official state holiday back in 1990. Democratic Representative Eric Emery of Rosebud responded to Trump's comments, saying it's disappointing to hear that any national leader would dismiss Indigenous Peoples Day. Emery also said he hopes Governor Roden and his successors will continue to recognize Native American Day in South Dakota. Authorities in Hamlin County are searching for a suspect in the shooting of several family pets. One family's dog was killed near Hazel, and later on, 2 cats were shot in Haiti. Investigators believe one person may be responsible. The pet owners are offering a cash reward for information leading to an arrest. The South Dakota Supreme Court is hearing arguments over the long-debated proposed McCook Lake Canal project. Arguments opened yesterday for 2 cases involving the permit process. The proposal of adding a canal to the south end of McCook Lake was made by Mike Shequin back in 2022 in an effort to expand the lake's footprint. This faced heavy opposition from residents in the area, sharing concerns over the potential impact of the lake's ecosystem and whether the lake's pumping system can handle more water. Cook Lake Association is now asking the South Dakota Supreme Court to declare that Sochin needs a water rights permit to use water from the lake to fill the canal, despite him not needing one under current regulations. And they've made it official. Project Prison Reset unanimously agreed yesterday to recommend to state lawmakers that the aged state penitentiary in Sioux Falls must be replaced. The task force is still considering several replacement sites, most in eastern South Dakota. The next task force meeting is June 3rd in Pierre.
You notice the number of sites now is dramatically increased. We're up to like 9 or 10 sites that they are taking a look at for that prison. Interesting. I think we should, I want to rephrase that. I hope that we would be able to build that without controversy. You know, in an area where it makes sense and folks are not going to be up in arms about it, which has been the case down in Lincoln County.
From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Carstens. What was that?
I just want to bring up a point here. This is where to go when you've got something to say. You don't have to tell these people what they want to know. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Today, a warning for all my attorney friends and those of you who like to represent yourself, say, even in traffic court. Never use artificial intelligence for your legal research and court responses. Just ask the TV pitchman, Mike Lindell. I'm Tim Commando for NetSuite. Download the free CFO's Guide to Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning right now at netsuite.com/Ken. You've probably seen Mike Lindell pitching his pillows on cable. He's also an unapologetic supporter of President Trump, so much so that he made false claims about the 2020 election being rigged. And now, Dominion Voting Systems, the company that makes the electronic ballot counters, is suing him. Unfortunately, Lindell and his attorney used AI to write their court filings. But AI has a major flaw. Sometimes it makes things up. It just lies. Lindell's court filings cite more than 30 phony court cases to support his positions. The lesson is clear. Never use AI as your legal guide. Start your day with my free newsletter. Sign up at getkim.com. What does the future hold for business? Ask 9 experts and you'll get 10 answers.
There's a definite role for AI, I think. You know, we talked about this a little bit the other day. definite role for AI, but in some cases, human beings are just superior to computers, man.
And HR all into one fluid platform. With one unified business management suite, there's one source of truth, giving you the visibility and control you need to make quick decisions. With real-time insights and forecasting, you're peering into the future with actionable data. When you're closing the books in days, not weeks, you're spending less time looking backward and more time on what's next. And speaking of opportunity, you can now download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/Kim. The guide is free for you at netsuite.com/Kim. That's netsuite.com/Kim. netsuite.com/Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is brought to you by Tires, making your vehicle ride like new. 2 Sioux Falls Tire and Automotive Centers. Visit tires3.com.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home with Renewal by Andersen picture and combination windows. Optimizing a beautiful view and light in a bedroom, kitchen, or living room from ABC Seamless of Sioux Falls. Call 605-646-2667 today.
Let's ABC Seamless.
Nielsen Construction invites you to the Clubhouse grand opening at 9 Mile Creek, a 55-plus community in T. Tour beautiful homes and the brand new clubhouse, Sunday, May 4th from 11:30 to 1:30, 1530 North May Place in T. Don't miss it.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless. That comes with a lot of fine print, plus. Oh, in other words, you pay more. At the end of the day, you paid for that, quote, free phone 3 times over. There is a better way. Pure Talk, my cell phone provider, a veteran-owned company, my sponsor, my wireless company, has a much better offer. A free phone with a qualifying plan for just $35 a month, and you get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26. Just make the switch to Pure Talk for $35 a month. You get unlimited talk, unlimited text, 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot and roaming, all on America's most dependable 5G network. Just dial pound 250, say the keyword Pure Talk, and Pure Talk's U.S. customer service team will help you make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Again, just dial pound 250, say the keyword Pure Talk for your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan. When you make the switch to Pure Talk, wireless by Americans for Americans.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, let's talk ED, because millions of men experience it, but not everyone can access or afford treatments like Viagra. HIMS can help. Through HIMS.com, you can access a full range of treatment options for ED through a 100% online process. To start your free online visit and save up to 95%, go to HIMS.com/joy, HIMS.com/JOY.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT, and that's what I use, ChatGPT. It's got a definite role, and it helps me every morning when it for instance, I have it every morning. I have it list 10 significant events in the continental United States. You know, so when I tell you what happened on this day in history, it will come up with a trivia question for me. Good news. I have it coming up with my good news, my Looney Tunes in the news. All of that stuff is coming from ChatGPT. I can't let that music get out on YouTube. Okay, here we go. 20 minutes before 7. Beautiful morning, partly cloudy and 46. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
What's trending now? Add them on Facebook. Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News Gallery.
Well, the president returned to Michigan yesterday, marking his first 100 days in office, and he made a number of other visits there as well prior then to This was before appearing at the rally. So there are a number of stories this morning, takeaways from the president's rally. He did talk about the tariffs. He talked about the economy. And he said, need a little time before we slaughter them on tariffs, he said. And he was talking about the auto industry and the number then of manufacturers, automobile manufacturers that are coming back to Michigan. He said, this is going to create more jobs in this state, in this country, he said. He also was talking about Doge. And he told the crowd, you know, they all say, oh, well, Trump is under the thumb of Elon. I don't think Donald Trump is under anybody's thumb. I mean, you only need to watch events. I mean, and be conscious to know that Donald Trump is not under the thumb of Elon Musk. So he said he repealed Joe Biden's electric vehicle push despite Elon Musk running Tesla. And he said, on day one, I created that very successful Department of Government Efficiency headed by Elon. It was a big thing. It was a big thing doing that, he said. He also talked about the Alien Enemies Act. And that's where a lot of these mass deportations have come in. He also talked about running in 2028. Trump 2028, anybody? He said a lot of people want me to do it, but I mean, I tell them we have a long way to go. You know, it's very early in the administration. Oh, this was Margot Martin at the rally. Said Trump 2028, anybody? And Trump then said, I missed the campaign. Trump really, he loves being on stage. He does. I don't think there's any question about that. You see a very relaxed and kind of a different Donald Trump when he is on stage than you do otherwise. And he loves the adulation. Let's be honest. He loves it. And why wouldn't he? The enthusiasm that you see at those rallies is just really kind of breathtaking. Also, the president apparently phoned Jeff Bezos. And this is a story from the Daily Mail, so it's a bit overhyped here. Declaring war on Amazon after they announced they will include the cost of tariffs on the price tag for products. And shortly before the president's call, the White House had criticized Amazon's move as a hostile and political act against America. This was during that comment was made by Carolyn Leavitt, the White House press secretary. And she talked about this in yesterday's briefing. She said at that time, she had just spoken to the president about the Amazon bombshell. And she said the president's message was clear. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. So the president apparently reaching out to them directly, and one White House aide said the president personally phoned Jeff Bezos to let him know he was not happy, and the aide said, of course, he was pissed. Why should a multi-billion-dollar company pass off costs to consumers? So shortly after the call, an Amazon spokesperson said they had no intention of enacting the tariff labeled on their website, but they confirmed they had explored the idea. So they seem to be reassuring customers, Amazon does, trying to reassure customers that you would not be paying the tariff then on Amazon products. And the president said later he had spoke to Jeff Bezos and they'd worked things out. President said Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. He did the right thing. He's a good guy, the president said. Also, the president, and some of these stories I've shared with you previously, but they are trending this morning, and that is pretty common. It takes sometimes a day or two or longer before stories actually start trending. Some that will wind up trending, for days or weeks every now and then. President saying that some people's income taxes will be lowered or maybe even completely eliminated due to tariffs. And he said the focus will be on people making less than $200,000 a year. All right. Yeah. I love hearing that. He said also massive numbers of jobs are already being created with new plants and factories being built or planned. It will be a bonanza for America. The External Revenue Service is happening, he said. Also, the president has fired Doug Emhoff and other Joe Biden appointees from the Holocaust Museum Board. And forgive me. The headline is telling me one thing, and the story actually is another one. That happens from time to time in some of these media outlets. Copy and pasting's not going so well. So China has waived a 125% tariff on ethane imports from the U.S. According to a report from Reuters, this happened yesterday. China had initially imposed the tariff earlier this month. They're retaliating against what the president has been doing. So Chinese companies rely on U.S. ethane. There are quite a number of them. And so that joins the growing list of products that China has granted tariff exemptions in the trade war. Also, a Nike ad campaign during the London Marathon has led to some pushback and now an apology from Nike. Social media, this was the London Marathon, and folks who were there and social media users took issue with a billboard that said, "Never again until next year." And you have those who are saying Nike never should have used the phrase "never again." It's generally associated with the Holocaust. Bill Ackman said on X, "Never again is as iconic a phrase as just do it. Nike should know better," he said. And it's hard to imagine why no one at Nike raised concerns about the ad. See, I totally disagree with Ackman. Are you kidding me? Hey, Bill, do you pay attention to what the hell's going on? I mean, we got a lot of people who are just acting, absolute nut jobs. He said, "I assume this was unintentional, but it's hard to imagine that there was no one at Nike on the marketing team at their advertising firm who didn't know or who didn't think to Google the words 'never again.'" Doesn't surprise me, not one little bit, unfortunately. I wish it did. Also, I mentioned to you yesterday, there have been a number of stories trending about the death of Gene Hackman and his wife. What did they die from? And one of the trending stories yesterday was about, what caused the death of Gene Hackman. And now we're learning the autopsy report that was released said that she died of hantavirus. And it caused fluid accumulation in her chest, mild hardening of the vessels then that supply blood to the heart and the body. So hantavirus is rare, and as we saw here, fatal. It's spread by infected rodent droppings. Also trending this morning, Washington, D.C. wants to redevelop the RFK Stadium site into a new entertainment district with a 65,000 seat stadium for the Commanders. This would be a $3.7 billion project. Would build a new neighborhood and also bring the NFL back to Washington. But it's up to the Washington, D.C. Council to approve it. Also, Cleveland left no doubt on their way to round 2 that, and we're talking about the NBA here, they finished off the most lopsided series in NBA playoff history. Donovan Mitchell scored 22 points, among others, and the Cavaliers rolled past the Miami Heat 138-83 Monday night. So they swept the Eastern Conference first round series in 4 games. The president has signed an executive order this week mandating that commercial truck drivers demonstrate their proficiency in English. And Carolyn Levitt had reacted to a story about this on X. And Sean Duffy also shared the article on X. It was a Breitbart article, I think. He also shared it and said he will be making a big announcement with the president to make our roadways safer and put American truckers first. So this would be an order then requiring truckers to speak English. In fact, that used to be the case until Barack Obama came along and was president. He was the one who started loosening those rules. So the president now tightening them back up again. The U.S. Supreme Court has reportedly denied the double jeopardy appeal of Karen Reed. They will not hear her lawyer's case. She's facing, as you may know, a retrial for having killed her boyfriend in January of 2022. This is fascinating. U.S. planning on building and launching the first ever orbital carrier into space. And they say this would be much like an aircraft carrier at sea and would offer a new way then for launching spacecraft and satellites into orbit. This orbital carrier is depicted as a platform in Earth orbit that could hold multiple spacecraft and deploy them as and when needed. And this is part of the U.S. Space Force. Also, a U.S. fighter jet slipped off the side of the USS Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier and then immediately sunk into the Red Sea. Happened on Monday of this week. Some are referring to it as a $56 million blunder. So the jet was being towed out of a hangar when the tow tractor lost control. So it's unclear why or how the crew lost control of the jet, but fell into the sea and bloop, 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 down she goes. Unfortunate. Cyndi Lauper is saying that she's humbled to be among those, the inductees into the 2025 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She had been previously nominated twice before. Now she's saying she's humbled. Cyndi Lauper made her debut in 1983. She became best known for songs like Time After Time, She Bop, number of others. I loved Cyndi Lauper, and I still do. But I love the music of the 1980s. Kind of nice to see her, be inducted. Also, the USDA is threatening to halt cattle and bison imports from Mexico because of the spread of New World screwworm. And U.S. officials are working with Mexican officials to try to combat this. So USDA threatening to stop imports of cattle and bison from Mexico as the New World screwworm continues to spread north, they say. Also, the Education Department this week determined that the University of Pennsylvania violated Title IX for allowing transgender athletes to compete on women's sports teams. They ordered the school to reverse course or face possible legal action. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Thanks so much for starting your day with us. It's great to have you along. 6:57, partly cloudy, 46. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show, brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
To the world, outer space, and beyond. If there's something fascinating.
Well, thank you, my friend. Please come back for the 4th hour later today. Until then, take care. See you again soon.
Just staring at the menu with my, what should I